Elf turning the key. The car started with its familiar concerning rattle. Just a nice old man having a hard day. As she drove home through the quiet streets, Tamika found herself wondering if she'd ever see Walter Brooks again. She hoped she would, though she couldn't have explained why. Perhaps it was simply the way he'd looked at her, not with pity for her obvious exhaustion or judgment for her worn scrubs, but with genuine appreciation and recognition. What she couldn't know, as she finally arrived home and trudged up the stairs to her empty apartment, was that their brief encounter had set wheels in motion that would arrive at her doorstep with the morning sun. Sleep came quickly for Tamika that night. No dreams disturbed her exhausted body as she sank deep into the worn mattress, still wearing her scrubs. The digital clock by her bed showed 3:47 a.m. when she finally stirred, just long enough to change into an oversized t-shirt before falling back into dreamless rest. Morning arrived with golden light filtering through the thin curtains. Tamika's first conscious thought was relief. No alarm, no rush to get Zoe ready for school, no hospital waiting for her tired body to show up and function for another 12 hours. Her rare day off stretched before her with the promise of small luxuries. A second cup of coffee, maybe catching up on that book she'd been trying to finish for months, perhaps even a bath instead of her usual hurried shower. She reached for her phone, squinting at the screen. 8:23 a.m., 5 text messages from her mother, all variations of, "Zoe is fine. Don't worry about picking her up until dinner time." Tamika smiled at her mother's thoroughness. As if she'd ever forget her own daughter. The apartment was quiet in a way it never was when Zoe was home. No cartoon sounds from the living room. No humming as her daughter got ready for school. No constant stream of questions and observations that both exhausted and delighted her. Tamika stretched, feeling her shoulders pop, then padded to the kitchen in bare feet. The coffee maker gurgled to life and she leaned against the counter, mentally sorting through her day. Laundry needed doing. Bills needed paying, or at least organizing into urgent and can wait another week piles. The refrigerator needed cleaning out. Not exactly the stuff of daydreams, but necessary nonetheless. Her phone buzzed again, but it wasn't her mother this time. The name Mrs. Chen flashed on the screen, her downstairs neighbor, an elderly woman who occasionally watched Zoe when Tamika's mother couldn't. Concerned, Tamika answered immediately. "Hello? Mrs. Chen, is everything okay?" "Tamika, dear." Mrs. Chen's voice was pitched higher than usual with excitement. "Did you buy a new truck?" "It's very nice. Blue is a good color for prosperity." Tamika frowned in confusion. "A truck?" "No, I didn't buy any truck." "Well, there's a brand new pickup truck in your parking spot. Big blue one with a red bow on it. I thought maybe you won something or got a bonus from the hospital." "A bow?" Tamika moved toward the window, coffee forgotten. "Mrs. Chen, I have no idea what you're talking about." "Come look. Everyone is talking about it already. Raymond from 2B thinks it might be a mistake, that the delivery people got the wrong address." Tamika pulled back her curtain and peered down at the parking lot, her breath caught in her throat. There, gleaming in the morning sun where her Honda should have been, sat a truck that looked fresh off a showroom floor. Even from 3 stories up, she could see the large red bow affixed to the hood. I'll call you back, Mrs. Chen." Ending the call, Tamika stood frozen for a moment, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Had her car been towed and replaced with this? Was it some kind of elaborate prank? A mistake? Moving with sudden urgency, she threw on a pair of sweatpants under her sleep shirt and stuffed her feet into the nearest shoes. Mismatched flip-flops, she realized as she rushed down the stairs. Her heart pounded with each step, a mixture of confusion and something that felt oddly like anticipation building in her chest. The parking lot was cool in the morning shade, dew still clinging to the patches of grass that pushed through the cracked concrete. A small group of neighbors had gathered at a respectful distance from the truck, their curious faces turning toward Tamika as she approached. "Is it yours?" called Raymond, a retired postal worker who knew everyone's business. "I have no idea," Tamika replied honestly, slowing as she neared the vehicle. It was even more impressive up close. A Ford F-150, navy blue with chrome accents catching the sunlight. The red bow was silk, fastened professionally to the hood. The truck looked powerful and pristine, its presence in the shabby parking lot as incongruous as a diamond in a box of pebbles. Tamika circled it slowly, keeping a cautious distance as if it might disappear if she got too close. The license plate was brand new, temporary tag still in place. Through the driver's side window, she could see a spotless tan leather interior. "There's something under the wiper," Mrs. Chen pointed out, having followed Tamika downstairs despite her arthritis. Sure enough, an envelope was tucked securely beneath the passenger side windshield wiper. Tamika's name was written across it in a shaky but neat hand. With trembling fingers, she removed the envelope. The small crowd of neighbors inched closer, unabashedly curious. "Y'all mind giving me a minute?" Tamika asked, suddenly feeling the weight of their collective gaze. With a few grumbles and disappointed looks, they retreated, though not too far. Mrs. Chen patted her arm before shuffling back toward the building entrance, throwing glances over her shoulder every few steps. Alone with the mysterious truck, Tamika took a deep breath and opened the envelope. Inside were a key fob, a folded document, and a handwritten letter on cream-colored stationery. She removed the letter first, her eyes widening as she began to read. The handwriting was the same careful script as on the envelope, each letter formed with deliberate precision that spoke of an older generation taught penmanship as an essential skill. The paper trembled slightly in her hand as she read, "Dear Tamika, by now you've discovered my small token of appreciation for your kindness last night. Please don't think of it as excessive. To me, it's barely adequate. What you couldn't have known when you paid for a stranger's dinner is that your father, James Wilson, once did far more for me than buy me a meal. 30 years ago, when my small auto repair shop was on the verge of closing, your father provided a loan that saved not just my business but my dignity. He asked for no collateral, no formal agreement, just a handshake and a promise that I would help others when I could. That business grew into what is now Brooks Automotive Group, with dealerships in 3 states. I tried many times to repay your father, but he would accept nothing more than the occasional free oil change. Just pay it forward, he would say. When I saw you last night, so clearly his daughter in both appearance and spirit, it felt like life had come full circle. The way you quietly helped an old man you didn't know. James would have done exactly the same. The truck is paid in full, including tax and insurance for the first year. Documents enclosed. I hope it serves you well. Your father mentioned many times how proud he was of your decision to become a nurse. My Tamika has healing hands, he would say. If you're willing, there's also a position waiting for you at Brooks Automotive Group, Community Outreach Coordinator. The hours would be weekdays 9 to 5, no weekends, and the salary is twice what you're likely making at the hospital. Of course, there's no obligation, but I could use someone with your heart in that role. Your father was my friend when I needed one most. I would be honored if you would allow me to be yours. With gratitude, Walter Brooks, Chairman, Brooks Automotive Group PS. Your Honda has been taken to our service center for repairs. One of my technicians will drop it off tomorrow, though I hope you'll keep the truck. Tamika lowered the letter, her legs suddenly unsteady. She leaned against the truck, her truck apparently, and tried to process what she just read. Her father had never mentioned Walter Brooks or any loan to an auto shop. But that wasn't surprising. James Wilson hadn't been the type to broadcast his good deeds. Kindness doesn't need an audience, he used to tell her, Walter Brooks. The humble old man counting coins in a diner was the owner of Brooks Automotive Group. Tamika knew the name. Everyone in town did. Their commercials played constantly on local TV, their distinctive blue and silver logo visible on dealerships throughout the region. And yet, last night he'd been wearing a worn jacket and counting change for a meal. Why would a wealthy businessman be in such a situation? As if answering her unspoken question, she remembered what Walter had said. Today would have been our 60th anniversary. He hadn't gone to the diner because he couldn't afford to eat elsewhere. He'd gone there to remember, to honor a tradition, perhaps, to feel close to his Ellie. Tamika looked at the truck again, seeing it with new eyes. It wasn't just transportation. It was a connection to her father, a part of his legacy she hadn't known existed. The key fob felt heavy in her palm. She pressed the unlock button, and the truck responded with a friendly beep and flash of lights. The driver's door opened smoothly, the new car smell wafting out to greet her. The tan leather seat was soft as she slid behind the wheel, adjusting it forward to accommodate her height. Everything about the vehicle spoke of quality and care. The dashboard was a blend of modern technology and classic design, with a touchscreen display and burnished wood accents. Tamika ran her fingers lightly over the steering wheel, half expecting to wake up from what surely must be a dream. But it wasn't a dream. The key slid into the ignition, a traditional key despite the fob which somehow seemed fitting. The engine roared to life with a powerful rumble that settled into a contented purr, nothing like her Honda's worrying rattle. Through the windshield, she could see her neighbors still watching, their expressions a mixture of amazement and curiosity. Mrs. Chen gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up from the building entrance. Tamika sat there, hands on the wheel, the letter from Walter resting on the passenger seat beside her. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness but of a complicated gratitude that reached back through the years to her, father, and forward to possibilities she hadn't dared to imagine just 24 hours ago. A job with regular hours, no more double shifts. Time to actually see Zoe grow up instead of just catching glimpses between work and sleep. A salary that might finally put them ahead instead of perpetually behind. All because she'd bought dinner for an old man who reminded her of her grandfather. "Thanks, Daddy," she whispered, looking upward. "I think I just met your friend." Tamika sat in the truck for nearly 20 minutes reading Walter's letter over and over, until the words blurred through her tears. Eventually, the curiosity of her neighbors drove her back upstairs to the privacy of her apartment. The key fob clutched tightly in her hand as if it might disappear if she loosened her grip. Once inside, she placed the letter carefully on her small kitchen table and paced the length of her living room, trying to make sense of everything. Her father had never been one to talk about his good deeds. Between you and God was his philosophy on helping others. Still, how had he never mentioned saving a business that grew into Brooks Automotive Group? Tamika dug through the hall closet until she found the old photo albums her mother had insisted she take after her father passed. She hadn't looked at them in years, the grief still too raw, the memories too precious to casually revisit. Now she flipped through them with purpose, searching for any clue that might connect her father to Walter Brooks. In the third album, she found it, a faded photograph from what must have been the early 1990s. Her father, young and strong, stood smiling beside a much younger Walter. Between them was a sign that read, "Brooks Auto Repair, Grand Reopening." Both men beamed with pride, their arms around each other's shoulders like old friends. Tamika touched her father's face in the photograph, tracing the familiar smile that had always made her feel like everything would be okay no matter what. "You never told me, Daddy," she whispered. "All these years?" Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Zoe's asking when you're picking her up." "Everything okay?" Reality crashed back in. She needed to call her mother, explain what had happened, though she barely understood it herself. She needed to pick up Zoe. She needed to decide about this job offer, about the truck, about everything. But first, she needed to talk to Walter Brooks. The letter had included a business card with a direct number. Tamika's fingers trembled as she dialed, half expecting to reach a secretary or answering service. Instead, Walter's gravelly voice answered on the second ring. Brooks speaking. "Mr. Brooks, Walter, it's Tamika Wilson." A moment of silence, then a warm chuckle. "I wondered how long it would take for you to call." "Found your surprise, did you?" Yes." Tamika struggled to find words adequate for the moment. "I don't know what to say. It's too much. Way too much for just a dinner." "It was never about the dinner, Tamika." His voice softened. "It was about seeing James in you. That same quiet generosity, that same dignity. The moment you told me your name, I knew. You have his eyes, you know. Same shape, same kindness in them." Tamika sank onto her couch, emotion tightening her throat. "I found a picture of you two. At your shop's reopening. Ah, yes. The day your father saved my life, though he never saw it that way." "How did you meet?" "He never told me about any of this." Walter sighed, the sound carrying decades of memory. "That doesn't surprise me. James wasn't one to broadcast his good deeds. We met when he brought in that old Buick of his, terrible car, always breaking down. I was just a small-time mechanic then, shop barely staying afloat. He got to talking while I worked on his car. Found out I was behind on rent, about to lose the place. Next day he came back with an envelope full of cash. Said it was a loan, but we both knew better." "That sounds like Daddy," Tamika whispered, remembering countless times her father had helped neighbors, church members, even strangers with similar quiet generosity. He kept coming back, brought other customers, helped me fix up the place on weekends. When business picked up, he refused any repayment. "Just pay it forward," he'd say. So that's what I've tried to do. But the truck, it's too much. And the job offer is genuine, Walter interrupted. I need someone like you, Tamika. Someone with compassion and integrity to run our community programs. The dealerships do well, very well, but we've lost touch with the neighborhoods we serve. I'm getting old. Can't do the hands-on work anymore. Need someone who understands people, who can rebuild those connections. Tamika's mind raced with the possibilities. No more night shifts. Weekends with Zoe. A salary that would finally let them get ahead instead of just scraping by. I don't know anything about cars, she admitted. Walter laughed. I don't need you to sell cars or fix engines. I need you to help us serve people better. The healthcare experience would be valuable. You know what families need, what struggles they face. Would it be possible to see the office? To talk about this in person? Tamika surprised herself with the request, but she needed to see Walter again. To make this strange situation real. Of course. How about this afternoon? Say around 2? That would give you time to pick up your daughter first. Tamika paused. How did you know I needed to pick up my daughter? You mentioned last night she was staying with her grandmother. Just assumed you'd want her home. Right. Tamika relaxed. 2 o'clock works. Where should I meet you? Main dealership on Riverside Drive. Ask for me at the front desk. And Tamika, drive your new truck. Get a feel for it. After ending the call, Tamika sat motionless for several minutes, trying to process everything. The photograph of her father and Walter still lay in her lap, their younger selves smiling up at her from across the years. Finally, she called her mother. The conversation was predictably chaotic. A truck? From who? What old man? James knew him? What kind of job? Her mother's questions tumbled over each other. Mom, I'll explain everything when I see you. I'm coming to pick up Zoe now, just trust me, okay? It's something good. Something really good. Driving the new truck to her mother's house felt strange. The vehicle responded to the lightest touch, its power humming beneath her as she navigated the familiar streets. It smelled of new leather and possibility. Zoe spotted the truck immediately when Tamika pulled into her grandmother's driveway, her face appearing at the window before Tamika could even turn off the engine. Whose truck is that? She demanded the moment Tamika stepped onto the porch. Where's our car? Why are you driving that? It's ours now, Tamika said simply, still not quite believing it herself. Ours? But how? Did you win something? Did we get rich? Zoe's questions mirrored her grandmother's, who stood in the doorway with arms crossed, waiting for explanations. Over lunch at her mother's kitchen table, Tamika told them everything. The diner, Walter counting his change, the surprising connection to her father, the job offer. As she spoke, her mother's expression shifted from skepticism to wonder. That sounds like your daddy, she said finally, shaking her head, always helping folks and never saying a word about it. That man would give away his last dollar and then tell me we were rich in blessings. Do you remember Walter Brooks, Mom? Did Dad ever mention him? Her mother thought for a moment. The name sounds familiar. Your father did help some mechanic years back. Mentioned it once when I asked why he kept going to the same shop even though it was clear across town. But I had no idea it turned into all this. She gestured toward the window where the truck was visible in the driveway. Are you going to take the job, Mom? Zoe asked, her eyes wide with excitement. Would we be rich then? Tamika smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. Not rich, baby, but comfortable. And I'd be home every evening. Weekends, too. No more night shifts? Zoe's voice held a mixture of hope and disbelief, and Tamika realized how much her work schedule had affected her daughter. No more night shifts, she confirmed. But I haven't decided yet. I'm meeting with Mr. Brooks this afternoon to learn more. At exactly 2 o'clock, Tamika pulled the truck into the visitors' parking area of Brooks Automotive Group. The main dealership was impressive, a sprawling complex with a showroom of gleaming vehicles, a state-of-the-art service center, and a 3-story office building with the now familiar blue and silver logo. She had dressed carefully in her best clothes, black slacks, a turquoise blouse her mother had given her for Christmas, low heels that pinched but looked professional. Still, she felt underdressed as she walked through the automatic doors into the air-conditioned showroom where sales staff in crisp suits showed vehicles to prospective buyers. I'm here to see Walter Brooks, she told the receptionist, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. The young woman's eyebrows rose slightly. Do you have an appointment? Mr. Brooks doesn't usually meet with customers directly. Yes, I do. Tamika Wilson, 2 o'clock. Recognition dawned on the receptionist's face. Oh, Ms. Wilson. Of course, Mr. Brooks is expecting you. He asked me to bring you straight up. She led Tamika to an elevator at the back of the showroom. Everyone's been talking about you, she confided as they ascended to the top floor. Mr. Brooks came in this morning happier than we've seen him in years. The elevator opened directly into a spacious reception area, decorated with vintage automotive memorabilia and framed photographs chronicling the growth of Brooks Automotive, Group from a single repair shop to its current empire. And there, waiting by the receptionist's desk, was Walter. Gone were the worn clothes from the diner. Today he wore a well-tailored gray suit that emphasized his dignified bearing, but his eyes were the same, kind, intelligent, with that hint of mischief that had drawn Tamika to him in the first place. "Tamika," he said warmly, stepping forward to take her hand. "Welcome to my world. I'm so glad you came." As their hands met, Tamika felt a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance, a link forged through her father, through shared values, through a chance meeting that perhaps wasn't chance at all. "Thank you for having me," she replied, suddenly certain that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. "I think I have a lot to learn about my father, and about you." Walter's smile deepened, creating a web of wrinkles around his eyes. "And I have a lot to share. Shall we begin?" 3 months had passed since that life-changing morning when Tamika found the blue truck in her parking spot. Summer had faded into autumn, bringing cooler mornings and leaves that crunched beneath her feet as she walked from the parking lot to the glass doors of Brooks Automotive Group each day. TIA. Community Outreach Office was located on the first floor of the main building. Walter had insisted on it being easily accessible to visitors. "No barriers," he'd said during their first meeting. "We're here to serve people, not intimidate them." Tamika's desk faced large windows that looked out onto a small garden. Walter had the space renovated before she started, replacing the previous occupants' dark furniture with lighter wood and bright, welcoming colors. Her nursing degree hung on the wall beside photographs of her with Zoe and a framed picture of her father, the one with him and Walter at the shop reopening, now restored and enlarged. "Morning, Ms. Wilson," called Darlene, the receptionist who had become Tamika's fast friend over the past months. "Morning," Tamika replied, setting down her travel mug on her desk. "How was your grandson's birthday party?" "Complete chaos," Darlene laughed. 6 5-year-olds hopped up on cake in excitement. My daughter's still cleaning frosting off the ceiling. Conversations like this, casual, friendly, unhurried, had become a normal part of Tamika's workday. No more rushing between patients, no more snatched lunches eaten standing up, no more coming home too exhausted to do more than collapse on the couch. The change in pace had taken some getting used to, but the benefits were undeniable. Tamika checked her calendar for the day. A meeting with the local high school principal about the apprenticeship program, lunch with the marketing team to discuss the holiday donation drive, and an afternoon visit to the senior center, where they'd been offering free basic car maintenance workshops. Busy but manageable, and meaningful in a way that surprised her. When Walter had described the job, Tamika had worried she'd miss nursing, the direct connection with people, the knowledge that her work made an immediate difference. But this role had its own rewards. The apprenticeship program had already placed 15 at-risk teenagers in paid internships. The senior workshops not only taught practical skills, but provided much-needed social connection for isolated elderly residents. Last month's food drive had collected enough to stock 3 local pantries through the winter. "You're making ripples," Walter had told her just yesterday during their weekly check-in. "Like your father did. One person can't solve everything, but they can start the movement that does." Her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Don't forget, science fair tonight at 6:30, followed by a string of excited emojis. "As if I could forget," Tamika texted back. "Your volcano will be the star of the show." That was another change, being present for these moments. No more missed school events because of shift work. No more tearful phone calls where Zoe tried to describe her art project or recital performance to a mother who could only listen from a hospital break room. A knock on her open door pulled Tamika from her thoughts. Walter stood there, looking dapper as always in a charcoal suit and blue tie that matched the company colors. "Got a minute?" he asked, though he was already settling into one of the chairs across from her desk. At 82, he moved more slowly than he once had, but his mind remained sharp as ever. For you, always. Tamika smiled at the man who had become a blend of boss, mentor, and family over these past months. I've been thinking, Walter began, adjusting his glasses. The holiday season's coming up. A lot of families struggling this year with the economy being what it is. Tamika nodded. She'd seen it firsthand in their outreach work. More people seeking assistance, more worry in the eyes of parents, more tough choices between necessities. I want to do something special. Something beyond our usual programs. Walter leaned forward, his eyes bright with purpose. Remember how we talked about your father's philosophy? Between you and God? I do. What would you think about an anonymous gift program? We identify 50 families in real need. Single parents, elderly folks on fixed incomes, people with medical bills piling up. Then we help in ways that really matter. Could be paying off a mortgage for a few months, clearing medical debt, covering tuition. No publicity, no Brooks Automotive name anywhere. Just help where it's needed most. Tamika felt a familiar tightening in her throat, the emotion that often caught her when Walter revealed another layer of his generous heart. That sounds exactly like what Daddy would do, she said softly. But that's a lot of money, Walter. He waved away her concern. Money sitting in accounts doesn't help anyone. Besides, I'm an old man with no children. Can't take it with me. His eyes twinkled. Though I've told my attorney to make sure I'm buried in that restored '57 Chevy in the showroom, just to see if he'll try. Tamika laughed as he'd intended. 50 families. It's ambitious. We'll start with finding them. You know this community better than anyone now. Think you can put together a list? People who wouldn't ask for help but really need it? I can. Already names were forming in Tamika's mind. The elderly couple from her old apartment building whose Social Security barely covered their medication. The young father who'd recently lost his wife to cancer and was raising 3 children while working 2 jobs. The teacher at Zoe's school who'd been diagnosed with MS but kept teaching because she couldn't afford to stop. Perfect. Let's meet next week to go over details. Walter stood, then paused. Oh, and Tamika? I'm coming to dinner on Sunday, right? Zoe promised to teach me that card game. The one with the explosions. Exploding kittens. And yes, 6 o'clock. Mom's coming too. Walter had become a regular visitor at their new home. A modest but comfortable 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, purchased with his help as a signing bonus. He'd insisted it wasn't charity but an investment in her future, and eventually, Tamika had accepted. The house had a yard where Zoe could play, a kitchen big enough for Sunday family dinners, and most importantly, space for visitors who had become family. After Walter left, Tamika turned to look out her window at the garden. A young couple was being shown a minivan by one of the sales staff, the woman visibly pregnant, the man checking the back seats with careful attention. Beginning a new chapter, just as she had. The blue truck had become known throughout the neighborhood. Tamika used it not just for commuting, but for delivering meals to elderly residents, picking up donations for the food bank, and transporting supplies for community events. Its bed had carried everything from Christmas trees for families who couldn't afford them to furniture, for a women's shelter that had recently expanded. Sometimes when she was driving alone, Tamika would talk to her father as if he were sitting beside her. "You'd like what we're doing, Daddy," she'd say. "Walter tells me stories about you all the time. Things you never mentioned to us. That family whose house you helped rebuild after the fire. The college fund you set up for the Johnson boys after their father died. Always quiet, always behind the scenes, just like Walter." The afternoon passed quickly. The senior center workshop was a particular success, with 20 elderly residents learning basic car maintenance skills they could use to avoid being overcharged by less scrupulous repair shops. One woman in her 70s had hugged Tamika tightly at the end. "My husband always handled these things," she'd confided. "Been gone 3 years now, and I've been terrified every time something goes wrong with the car." "Not anymore. You tell that Mr. Brooks he's doing the Lord's work with these classes." By 5:30, Tamika was heading home to change before Zoe's science fair. The autumn light was fading, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold as she drove through familiar streets. At a stoplight, she noticed an elderly woman at the bus stop, laden with grocery bags and looking tired. Without hesitation, Tamika pulled over. "Ma'am, could I offer you a ride home?" The woman looked startled, then relieved. "Oh, that's very kind. These bags are heavier than I expected." As they drove, the woman introduced herself as Dorothy, a retired school teacher who lived alone since her sister had moved to a nursing home. "Usually my neighbor helps with shopping, but she's down with the flu," she explained. When they arrived at her small house, Tamika insisted on carrying the groceries inside. The home was neat but needed repairs. Peeling paint, a sagging porch step, a window patched with duct tape. "Thank you, dear," Dorothy said, as Tamika set the bags on her kitchen counter. Not many people would stop these days. "My pleasure," Tamika replied, then hesitated. "Ms. Dorothy, would you mind if I added your address to a list? There's a community program that might be able to help with some home repairs before winter sets in." "Oh, I couldn't accept charity," Dorothy began. "It's not charity," Tamika assured her, echoing Walter's words. "It's community. We look out for each other." Driving away a few minutes later, Tamika added Dorothy's name to the mental list she was compiling for Walter's holiday program. The truck's heater hummed softly as darkness fell, and Tamika thought about the chain of events that had led her here, from a simple meal bought for a stranger to a completely transformed life. At home, Zoe was already dressed and anxious to leave for the science fair, her handmade volcano carefully secured in a cardboard box. "Mom, you're cutting it close," she scolded, so grown up at 9.5. "Sorry, baby. Got caught up helping someone." Tamika changed quickly into a sweater and jeans. "Ready when you are, Professor Wilson." As they drove to the school, Zoe chattering excitedly about her project, Tamika felt a deep contentment settle in her chest. The road ahead was bright with possibility, not just for her, but for all the lives she could touch through her work with Walter. "You know," she said during a pause in Zoe's monologue about volcanic eruptions, "sometimes a small kindness can change everything. Like when you bought dinner for Mr. Walter and then he gave you a truck and a job?" Zoe asked, proving she'd been paying attention all along. "Exactly like that." Tamika smiled. "Your grandpa used to say that generosity creates ripples that go on, touching shores we might never see." "I like that," Zoe said thoughtfully. "It's like science, action and reaction." "That's right, baby." Tamika reached over to squeeze her daughter's hand. The most important science of all. The school parking lot came into view, filled with parents and excited children carrying projects of all shapes and sizes. Another normal evening in a life that felt miraculous in its ordinary blessings. As Tamika helped Zoe carefully lift her volcano from the truck bed, she silently thanked her father, Walter, and whatever divine hand had placed her in that diner on exactly the right night. Sometimes a meal was more than just a meal. Sometimes it was the first link in a chain that connected past to future, stranger to family, struggle to possibility. Sometimes it was the beginning of everything.